It started like any other day in the heart of this lush sanctuary, a place where gorillas live peacefully, surrounded by the people who care for them. But today was different, a day no one could have predicted. As the ambulance made its way through the narrow paths of the sanctuary, everything came to a sudden halt. A massive silverback gorilla stepped onto the road, blocking its path. At first, there was confusion. The gorilla stood tall and unmoving, its eyes locked on the ambulance. There was no aggression in its stance, no sign of fear. Seconds passed, and then something remarkable became clear. This wasn't random. The gorilla wasn't lost or frightened. Its presence was deliberate, purposeful, as though it was trying to deliver a message. What happened next would change everything. The sanctuary, a haven of tranquility surrounded by dense jungle, seemed untouched by the rush of the outside world. It was here that the ambulance began its slow journey along the narrow dirt path, weaving through towering trees and the calls of distant wildlife. Inside, the team remained focused on their mission, unaware of what awaited them just a few moments ahead. Then, without warning, the vehicle came to a halt. Standing directly in the middle of the road was a silverback gorilla, its massive frame unmistakable, its presence commanding. The team froze, startled by the unexpected sight. The gorilla didn't move. It stood firm, its broad chest rising and falling steadily, its gaze locked on the ambulance. At first, the team didn't know how to react. Was this a display of dominance? A misunderstanding? Yet the gorilla's behavior didn't match either. There was no sign of aggression, no threatening movements, only a calm but unyielding stance, as if it had a purpose for being there. Seconds turned into what felt like an eternity, the team exchanging uncertain glances. It became clear this wasn't a random encounter. The gorilla wasn't simply wandering or curious. Its movements, deliberate and precise, seemed to carry a silent message. This was no ordinary moment. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. The gorilla remained in place, unmoving, its presence both commanding and mysterious. The team inside the ambulance began to piece together that this wasn't just a chance encounter. There was an urgency in its stance, but not one born from fear or aggression. It was as though it was waiting for them to understand something it couldn't communicate in words. The caretaker sitting in the passenger seat spoke first, their voice a mix of awe and curiosity. "It's trying to tell us something," they said, their eyes locked on the gorilla. Others nodded in silent agreement, sensing the same unspoken connection. As they observed, the gorilla made a subtle but deliberate movement. It glanced over its shoulder toward the forest, then back at the vehicle. The gesture was unmistakable. It wanted them to follow. Slowly, the driver eased the ambulance forward a few feet. The gorilla didn't flinch, but instead stepped to the side, just enough to clear the path, before looking back at them once more. "Do you think it's leading us somewhere?" one of the team members asked, their voice tinged with both uncertainty and wonder. The question hung in the air as the gorilla began to walk ahead, glancing back every few steps to ensure the ambulance was following. The tension inside the vehicle grew as they realized they were no longer in control of the situation. The gorilla, with its deliberate movements and intense gaze, had become their guide. Where it was leading them, they couldn't yet know, but they were about to find out. The ambulance crept forward, its tires crunching softly against the dirt road, as the team followed the gorilla. It moved with purpose, glancing back every so often to ensure they were still behind. The forest seemed to close in around them, the thick canopy above casting shadows that danced across the path. Inside the ambulance, the tension was palpable. The team exchanged uncertain glances, each silently wondering where this journey was taking them. "It knows exactly where it's going," one of the caretakers whispered, their voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. The gorilla suddenly paused, turning to face the vehicle once more. For a moment, it stood still, its powerful frame illuminated by a shaft of light breaking through the trees. Then, with a subtle motion of its head, it directed their attention deeper into the forest. The team hesitated, unsure of what lay ahead. But the silent plea in the gorilla's eyes was impossible to ignore. As the ambulance came to a stop, the gorilla moved aside, stepping just off the path. It stood there, waiting, watching. The team realized this was it. Whatever the gorilla wanted to show them was just beyond the trees. Taking a deep breath, the caretaker opened the door and stepped out, the rest of the team following closely behind. The air was thick with anticipation as they ventured forward, guided by the gorilla's unwavering gaze. What they found next would leave them speechless. The team moved cautiously, their footsteps crunching softly on the forest floor. The gorilla followed closely behind, its presence both reassuring and urgent, as if it understood the gravity of the moment. They pushed through dense foliage, the sunlight filtering through the trees in fragmented beams, casting an ethereal glow over the path. Then, just ahead, they saw it, a figure lying on the ground. It was one of the sanctuary's caretakers, motionless and barely visible against the forest floor. The team froze for a moment, their breath catching in their throats. The gorilla let out a soft grunt, stepping closer to the fallen person, its massive hand gently touching the ground near them. Rushing forward, the team knelt beside their colleague, quickly assessing the situation. "They're breathing," one of them said, relief washing over their voice. "But they're weak. We need to act fast." The caretaker's radio was damaged, and they'd clearly been unable to call for help. As the ambulance team worked quickly to stabilize the fallen caretaker, the gorilla stood watch, its gaze shifting between the humans and the surrounding forest, as though guarding the scene. It stayed calm and focused, its body language communicating an unspoken trust in the team's actions. The moment was surreal, a massive, powerful creature standing guard over a vulnerable human, ensuring they were safe. It was clear the gorilla had led them here with purpose, understanding the urgency of the situation in a way no one could fully explain. With the caretaker stabilized and ready to be moved, the gorilla let out a low, rumbling sound, almost as if it was sighing in relief. The team exchanged glances, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had just experienced. This was more than a rescue. It was a testament to the profound connection that can exist between humans and the animals they care for. The rescued caretaker was carefully loaded into the ambulance, the team working quickly yet gently, still processing the events that had unfolded. As the vehicle began its journey back, the gorilla stayed behind, watching them from the edge of the forest. It was as though it had completed its mission, its role in the story now finished. But the connection they had just witnessed was undeniable. The team, still in shock, exchanged quiet words as they drove back to the sanctuary. "I can't believe it," one of them murmured, shaking their head. "That gorilla, it knew what was happening." A sense of awe filled the ambulance. It was impossible to put into words what they had just witnessed. Was it instinct? A deep, unspoken understanding? Whatever it was, the gorilla's actions had been nothing short of heroic. As the ambulance pulled up to the sanctuary, the staff rushed out to help. The rescued caretaker, now conscious, was carefully escorted to safety. There were tears, both from the team and the staff, as they all realized the magnitude of the gorilla's role. "That gorilla saved a life today," one of the staff said softly, her voice filled with admiration. "It knew exactly what to do, when to do it. This is something we'll never forget." The entire sanctuary paused for a moment, a deep sense of gratitude settling over everyone. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a reminder of how closely intertwined humans and animals can be, how the lines between them can blur when the bonds of empathy and compassion are strong enough. As the sun began to set over the sanctuary, the story of the gorilla who blocked the ambulance would echo in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed it. It was a story that would be told for years to come, a testament to the incredible, heartwarming acts of kindness that often go unseen in the world.